The chamber was vast, stretching nearly a kilometer in every direction. Thousands of delegates from across the known galaxy filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from crystalline beings that hummed with inner light to massive creatures that breathed methane instead of oxygen. This was the Grand Council of the Galactic Empire, the ruling body that had maintained peace and order for over 3,000 years. Ambassador Thelnara stood at her designated platform, her four eyes scanning the data tablet in her primary hands, while her secondary hands gestured to emphasize her points. She was a Velcaran, a species known for diplomatic skill and patience. Her blue skin reflected the chamber's soft lighting as she addressed the council. Honored members, we have discovered a new species in Sector 447. They call themselves humans, and they inhabit a star system they named Sol. Initial surveys indicate a single inhabited planet with a population of approximately 12 billion individuals. A low murmur rippled through the chamber. 12 billion was a respectable number for a pre-contact civilization. Council member Zath, a reptilian being from the core worlds, raised one clawed hand. What is their technological classification? Zath asked, his voice carrying easily across the vast space. Thelnara consulted her tablet. They possess faster-than-light communication capabilities, advanced computing systems, and have established basic fusion power generation. They have sent primitive probes beyond their star system, but have not yet achieved true interstellar travel. We classify them as a Level 4 civilization. Level 4, repeated Councillor Miresh, a floating jellyfish-like creature contained in a sphere of oxygenated water. That places them in the integration protocol category. Standard procedure should apply. Thelnara nodded. Precisely. I propose we dispatch a contact fleet with the usual offerings: technology exchanges, medical advances, and an invitation to join the Empire as a client species. Within 50 cycles, they should be fully integrated into our lower administrative tiers. The proposal was unremarkable. The Galactic Empire had performed this same procedure over 10,000 times throughout its long history. A newly discovered species would be contacted, shown the benefits of joining the Empire, and gradually absorbed into the vast bureaucratic machine. Some species resisted at first, but they always came around once they saw what the Empire could offer. Technology protection, access to thousands of worlds. The benefits were undeniable. The vote was swift and unanimous. Ambassador Thelnara was granted authorization to lead the contact mission. She would take a fleet of 12 ships, including 3 massive colony vessels that doubled as mobile embassies. The fleet would demonstrate the Empire's strength while also showing its peaceful intentions. 6 cycles later, the fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Thelnara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Harmony, watching the view screen as the star called Sol grew brighter. The fleet had positioned itself just beyond the orbit of the outermost planet, a respectful distance that allowed the humans time to notice their arrival. Begin broadcasting the standard greeting in all common mathematical languages, Thelnara ordered. And prepare the gift packages. I want our first impression to be welcoming. The communications officer, a 6-armed Nexian, worked quickly at his station. Broadcasting now, Ambassador. We should receive a response within... The officer stopped mid-sentence. His skin, normally a healthy purple, faded to a pale lavender. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission, but it is not a greeting. Play it, Thelnara said, curious. A human face appeared on the view screen. The being had brown skin, short dark hair, and 2 eyes that stared directly at Thelnara with an intensity she found unsettling. The human wore a dark blue uniform with silver markings that suggested military rank. Attention, unidentified vessels, the human said, speaking in perfect galactic standard. Thelnara's translator confirmed the language was flawless, without accent or error. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Terran Command. You have approached the sovereign territory of humanity. Turn back immediately. This border is closed to all foreign vessels. Thelnara felt her secondary heart skip a beat. In 300 years of diplomatic service, she had never received such a message. Species were supposed to be excited about first contact. They were supposed to be curious, eager, perhaps even frightened. But hostile? Dismissive? That never happened. Surely there has been a misunderstanding, Thelnara replied, trying to keep her voice calm and friendly. We come in peace, representing the Galactic Empire. We bring gifts and knowledge. We wish only to speak with your leaders about... There is no misunderstanding, Admiral Chen interrupted. We are aware of your empire. We have monitored your communications and studied your protocols. We are not interested in integration, assimilation, or any other arrangement that compromises our independence. Leave our space now. The transmission ended abruptly. Thelnara stared at the blank view screen, her mind racing. How did the humans know Galactic Standard? How had they monitored Imperial communications? And more importantly, how did they know about integration protocols? Get me a direct link to the Grand Council, Thelnara ordered. Immediately. It took several hours for the Council to convene an emergency session. Thelnara explained the situation as clearly as she could, though she knew how absurd it sounded. The Council members reacted exactly as she expected, with disbelief, confusion, and growing anger. They rejected first contact? Councillor Zath said, his voice rising. That is impossible. Every species welcomes the opportunity to join the Empire. Not every species, corrected Elder Vorn, one of the oldest members of the Council. There have been isolated cases throughout history, but those species were always brought around eventually. They simply needed time to understand the benefits. This seems different, Thelnara said carefully. The human admiral spoke as if she already understood everything about us. And she used the word sovereign territory. That suggests they see themselves as equals, not as a species requiring guidance. Equals? Councillor Miresh's water sphere bubbled with agitation. They have not even left their home system. They have no colonies, no fleet, no influence beyond a single star. How can they possibly consider themselves equal to an empire spanning 10,000 worlds? Thelnara had no answer to that question, but something in Admiral Chen's eyes had troubled her. It was not the look of ignorance or fear. It was the look of someone who had already made calculations and was confident in the results. I recommend we proceed cautiously, Thelnara said. Perhaps if we give them time. Time? Zath slammed his clawed hand on his console. We do not have time for this nonsense. Ambassador, you will make contact again. Explain to these humans that their options are simple. Join the Empire willingly or be categorized as a hostile element. Those are the only two choices any species has ever had. Thelnara wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. The Council had made its decision. She would follow orders, as she always had. But as she prepared to contact the humans again, she could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. In 3,000 years, no species had ever told the Empire to leave their space. The humans had just done exactly that, and somehow, Thelnara suspected they had been ready for this moment long before the Empire's ships had arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the Terran Defense Station Armstrong, watching the sensor displays with unwavering focus. The station orbited beyond Neptune, one of 12 massive defensive platforms that formed humanity's outer perimeter. Each station was armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and Chen had 300 ships under her direct command, with thousands more positioned throughout the Sol system. Admiral, the aliens are hailing us again, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the communications station. Same ambassador as before. Put her through, Chen said. She straightened in her chair, her expression neutral. Years of military training had taught her to reveal nothing, especially to potential enemies. The view screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Thelnara. The alien looked tired, Chen noticed. Good. Maybe that meant the Empire was starting to take humanity seriously. Admiral Chen, Thelnara began, her voice smooth and practiced. I hope we can move past our initial misunderstanding. The Galactic Empire wishes only friendship and cooperation with your species. To demonstrate our goodwill, I have prepared gifts for you and your people. The screen split, showing images of advanced technology, medical devices that could cure diseases, energy generators that could power entire cities, manufacturing systems that could produce materials atom by atom. Chen had to admit it was impressive. For a primitive species, these gifts would be life-changing. Unfortunately for the Empire, humanity was not primitive. We appreciate the gesture, Chen said, her tone flat, but we are not interested in gifts that come with obligations. Thelnara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Obligations? Admiral, I think you misunderstand. These are offered freely, as a sign of friendship between our peoples. Nothing is free, Chen replied. We have studied your empire's history, Ambassador. Every species you have contacted has been integrated into your system. They lose their independence, their right to self-governance, They become client states following orders from your Grand Council. That is not friendship. That is subjugation dressed in pleasant language. The ambassador's blue skin darkened slightly. Chen recognized it as a sign of emotion, though she was not sure which one. Anger, embarrassment, fear? You are mistaken, Thelnara said, though her voice lacked conviction. Client species are valued members of the Empire. They receive protection, technology, and access to thousands of worlds. Yes, they follow certain guidelines, but that is for the greater good of all species. The greater good is defined by your empire, Chen said, not by the species themselves. Ambassador, let me be clear. Humanity has no interest in joining your empire in any capacity. We offer you a counter-proposal. Recognize our complete sovereignty over the Sol system and all territories we claim. Sign a non-aggression pact with no conditions. Agree to trade and cultural exchange as equals. Those are our terms. Thelnara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried a hint of condescension that she could not quite hide. Admiral, I mean no disrespect, but your species is very young. You have much to learn about the galaxy. The Empire has maintained peace for thousands of years precisely because we have a structure, a hierarchy. Junior species like yours must earn the right to full sovereignty through centuries of demonstrated responsibility and cooperation. It is simply how things work. Chen felt a cold fury building inside her, but she kept her face calm. Then things are about to change, Ambassador. This conversation is over. I will give you 12 hours to move your fleet beyond the boundary we have designated. If you remain after that time, we will consider it an act of aggression. Admiral, please, Thelnara began, but Chen cut the transmission. Ma'am, said Commander Park, do you think they will actually leave? No, Chen said quietly. They have never been told no before. They will test us. Make sure all stations are at full readiness. 8 hours later, Chen's prediction proved correct. 3 Imperial warships detached from the main fleet and began moving toward the Sol system's inner planets. They were medium-sized vessels, each about half a kilometer long, bristling with weapons and armor. The ships moved slowly, deliberately, as if daring humanity to respond. Chen watched them cross the invisible boundary she had designated. She waited until they were a full light second inside human space. Then she gave the order, weapons free. Target their propulsion systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Hidden weapons platforms positioned throughout the outer system and running silent to avoid detection, activated simultaneously. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck all 3 Imperial ships with surgical precision. The ship's shields flared briefly, then collapsed. The projectiles punched through armor plating and destroyed the main engines. Secondary explosions rippled across the hulls, but the ships remained intact. Life support was still functioning. The crews would survive, but the ships were dead in space, drifting helplessly in the dark. Chen opened a channel to the disabled vessels. This is Admiral Chen. Your crews are unharmed and we will permit rescue vessels to retrieve you. But understand this. You crossed our border after being warned. Next time we will not show mercy. Tell your empire that the Sol system is not open for expansion. Leave our space. Do not return. Aboard the Eternal Harmony, Ambassador Thelnara stared at her tactical display in complete shock. 3 Imperial warships, vessels that could destroy cities from orbit, had been disabled in seconds. The humans had weapons the Empire had never encountered. Weapons that struck faster than shields could respond. How? She whispered. How is this possible? Her tactical officer, a veteran of dozens of conflicts, shook his head slowly. I do not know, Ambassador. Our sensors barely detected the projectiles before impact. They were moving at velocities that should require impossible amounts of energy. And the precision. Every shot struck exactly where it needed to. This was not luck. This was calculated. Thelnara looked at the view screen where Admiral Chen's face had been moments before. She thought about the human's cold eyes, the absolute certainty in her voice. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed humanity was weak because they had not left their home system. But what if the humans had not left because they did not need to? What if they had spent all their time and resources building defenses instead of colonies? Send a message to the Grand Council, Thelnara said, her voice shaking slightly. Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are not what we thought. Tell them we may have found something we have not encountered in 800 years. What is that, Ambassador? The tactical officer asked. Thelnara met his gaze. an enemy that can actually fight back. The rescue operation took 6 hours. Imperial ships retrieved the crews from the disabled vessels, then withdrew to the edge of the system. Telnara filed her report, knowing that what came next would be out of her hands. The Grand Council would not accept this humiliation. They would send a real fleet, to teach humanity a lesson about defying the Empire. Telnara had seen it happen before with other stubborn species. The Empire would demonstrate its power, the species would surrender, and order would be restored. But as she watched the stars through her viewport, Telnara wondered if this time might be different. The humans had drawn a line in space and defended it with brutal efficiency. They had weapons the Empire did not understand, and a confidence that suggested they had more surprises waiting. For the first time in her long career, Ambassador Telnara was genuinely afraid of what would happen next. War Master Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, and studied the tactical projection of the Sol system. He was a Crothian, a species bred for warfare, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick armored plates covering his body. In his 200 years of service, he had subjugated 17 species and crushed 23 rebellions. The Grand Council had chosen him specifically for this mission because he had never failed. 200 ships, Krell said, his voice like grinding stone. They send me to deal with primitives who have not even left their home system. The Council insults me with this assignment. His second-in-command, a cautious Velcoran named Resh, shifted nervously. War Master, perhaps we should review the reports from Ambassador Telnara. The humans demonstrated unexpected capabilities. The humans got lucky, Krell interrupted. They had hidden weapons platforms. So what? We have faced hidden defenses before. We have scanners, shields, and 200 warships equipped with weapons that can crack planets. These humans will learn what happens when a species defies the Empire. Krell had read Telnara's report, of course. He had seen the data on the kinetic weapons that disabled 3 ships. Impressive, certainly, but nothing his fleet could not handle. The Empire had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. No single system species could stand against them. Prepare the fleet for system entry, Krell commanded. Standard battle formation. Shields at maximum. All weapons armed. We will show these humans the true meaning of power. The fleet moved forward, 200 massive warships advancing in precise formation. They were ships of war, built for conquest, armed with plasma cannons, missile batteries, and energy weapons capable of destroying cities. The smallest vessel in the fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Or so Imperial intelligence believed. They crossed into the Sol system, passing the boundary that Admiral Chen had designated as human space. Krell waited for the primitive warning message, the frightened pleas for mercy. Instead, his sensors officer spoke in a tone of confusion. War Master, we are detecting multiple contacts, thousands of them. They are appearing all throughout the system as if they were hiding and just activated their power signatures. Krell frowned. Specification? Small objects, War Master. Each approximately 10 meters across. They are stationary, not moving to intercept. Defense platforms, Krell said dismissively. Automated weapons. Destroy them. The fleet opened fire, plasma bolts and missiles streaking through space toward the nearest platforms. But something was wrong. The platforms were not defending themselves. They were not shooting back. They were just sitting there absorbing the fire, exploding one after another. Too easy, Reshape muttered. War Master, this does not feel right. Krell was about to agree when his weapons officer shouted a warning. Incoming fire! Multiple vectors. I cannot track the origin points. The first projectile struck 3 ships on the fleet's outer edge. There was no time for evasive maneuvers, no time for shields to adjust. The kinetic rounds, traveling at impossible speeds, punched through armor and shields like they were paper. Explosions rippled across the hulls as the projectiles struck vital systems. Return fire, Krell roared. Find those weapons and destroy them. But the weapons were almost impossible to find. They were small, stealthy, scattered throughout the system. Some were on asteroids. Others were on platforms that looked like ordinary satellites. A few were on drones that moved erratically, making targeting difficult. And all of them were firing projectiles that moved faster than anything Krell had encountered. The battle became a nightmare. For every human weapons platform the fleet destroyed, 2 more revealed themselves. The kinetic rounds struck with horrifying precision, targeting engines, weapon systems, and command centers. Ships began to fall out of formation, crippled and drifting. Krell's tactical display showed the casualties mounting. 10 ships lost, 20, 30. His fleet was being torn apart by an enemy he could barely see. War Master, we must withdraw, Reshape urged. We are losing too many ships. No! Krell slammed his fist on the command console. We are the Galactic Empire. We do not retreat from primitives. Another barrage struck the Dominion's fist. The flagship shuddered as projectiles hammered its shields. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. The shields were failing. One more hit like that and the flagship itself would be crippled. Krell looked at his tactical display. 40 ships lost now. His mighty fleet was being decimated by weapons he did not understand, launched from positions he could not identify. The humans were not even using ships. They were using the entire system as a weapon, turning asteroids and orbital platforms into a massive defensive network. Withdraw, Krell said quietly, then louder. All ships retreat. Exit the system immediately. The fleet turned and fled, leaving behind the wreckage of 40 warships and the bodies of thousands of Imperial soldiers. The survivors limped back beyond the border, their pride shattered and their confidence broken. Krell stood alone on his bridge after the retreat, staring at the tactical display. 40 ships. He had lost 40 ships in less than an hour of combat. In his entire career, he had never lost more than 5 ships in a single engagement. The humans had destroyed 40 without even deploying their fleet. They were waiting for us, Reshape said quietly, approaching the War Master. They knew we would come. They prepared the battlefield. This was not luck, War Master. This was strategy. Krell said nothing. He was thinking about the reports, the ones he had dismissed as exaggeration. The humans had disabled 3 ships in seconds during the first encounter. He should have taken that more seriously. He should have realized what it meant. The humans were not primitives stumbling through their first contact with alien life. They were warriors who had turned their entire home system into a fortress. They had weapons technology that surpassed the Empire's understanding, and they had the will to use it. Send a message to the Grand Council, Krell finally said. Tell them we failed. Tell them the humans are a legitimate military threat. Tell them that if they want to conquer the Sol system, they will need to send a fleet 10 times this size, maybe even 100 times. Reshape blinked in surprise. War Master, surely you are not suggesting... I am suggesting that we just lost a battle to a species that has never fought in space before, Krell said, his voice heavy with something he had never felt before. Respect for an enemy. What do you think they will be capable of when they do leave their system? When they start building fleets of their own? The question hung in the air, unanswered. On Earth, in Terran Command's underground headquarters, Admiral Chen watched the Imperial fleet retreat on her main display. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, coordinating the defense, but she felt no exhaustion. Only grim satisfaction. Casualty report, she said. 14 weapons platforms destroyed, ma'am, reported her tactical officer. 3 damaged but repairable. No friendly casualties. And the enemy? 40 ships confirmed destroyed or disabled. The rest are fleeing beyond our border. They are not stopping. Chen nodded slowly. Good. Issue a system-wide stand-down. But keep all platforms on standby. They may come back. She looked at the star map, at the vast territory of the Galactic Empire spreading across thousands of light years. Humanity had won this battle, but it was just one battle. The Empire had resources that dwarfed anything humanity could field. This fight was far from over, but humanity had sent a message today. They had shown the Empire that the Sol system was not easy prey. They had demonstrated that humans could fight and fight well. Ma'am, said her communications officer, we are receiving transmissions from Earth. The planetary governments are asking for a status update. Tell them we won, Chen said simply. The border holds. She did not add what she was thinking, that this victory might start a war humanity was not ready for. That the Empire might come back with 1,000 ships or 10,000. That humanity had just made an enemy of the largest political entity in the galaxy. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had defended its home. Today, they had earned the right to stand as equals whether the Empire acknowledged it or not. Chen looked at Earth on her display, that blue-green marble spinning peacefully in space. She thought about the billions of people down there going about their lives unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. Not on my watch, she whispered to herself. Never on my watch. Intelligence Coordinator Vess sat in a darkened room deep within the Grand Council's central complex, surrounded by holographic displays showing everything Imperial intelligence had gathered about Earth and its inhabitants. She had been working for 6 cycles straight, barely sleeping, driven by a need to understand what the Empire had encountered. The data was disturbing. Vess was a Mindari, a species with enhanced cognitive processing abilities. Her people were natural analysts able to see patterns others missed, and the patterns she saw in the human data terrified her. "Computer, display Earth's geological history," she commanded. A hologram appeared, showing Earth's 4-billion-year timeline. Vess watched as the planet endured asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, and climate shifts that would have sterilized most worlds. Life on Earth had been pushed to the edge of extinction at least 5 times, yet it always came back stronger. Display the evolution of human predators. The hologram shifted, showing creatures that had hunted across Earth's surface. Massive reptiles with crushing jaws, huge cats with saber-like teeth, pack hunters that coordinated their attacks, and then, appearing just a few 100,000 years ago, humans themselves. Small, weak compared to other predators, but clever. So very clever. Vess leaned forward, studying the human evolutionary path. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They were slow runners compared to many animals. By all logic, they should have died out. Instead, they became the planet's dominant species through intelligence, tool use, and something else: relentless persistence. Show human territorial conflicts. The display changed again, showing a map of Earth covered in red markers. Each marker represented a war, a battle, a conflict. There were thousands of them, tens of thousands. Humanity had been fighting itself for its entire recorded history. Vess felt her skin grow cold. She pulled up specific conflicts, reading the details. The humans had developed increasingly sophisticated weapons: bronze swords, steel armor, gunpowder, chemical weapons, nuclear bombs. They had created weapons capable of destroying their entire species, and they had come terrifyingly close to using them. Computer, cross-reference human weapons development with Imperial client species during their pre-contact periods. The comparison made Vess's breath catch. Most species developed weapons slowly, driven by occasional conflicts or hunting needs. The rate of human weapons innovation was 10 times faster than the galactic average. Some species had never developed weapons at all before joining the Empire. Humans had been preparing for war since they lived in caves. Show me the human space program. This was where everything clicked into place for Vess. Humans had achieved spaceflight only 200 years ago, but they had not used it the way other species did. Most species explored, established colonies, and expanded peacefully. Humans had certainly done some of that, but they had also built weapons platforms, defense stations, and military infrastructure. The Sol system was not just a home. It was a fortress. Vess pulled up classified reports from War Master Krell's engagement. The human weapons were kinetic projectiles, simple in concept but devastating in execution. They used mass and velocity, launched by electromagnetic acceleration systems. The projectiles traveled at a significant fraction of light speed, making them almost impossible to dodge. And because they had no power signature until they were launched, they were nearly invisible until it was too late. Clever, Vess muttered. Ruthlessly clever. She compiled her findings into a report, knowing it would cause panic in the Grand Council. But they needed to know the truth. The Grand Council convened an emergency session once again. Vess stood before them, her presentation displayed on the massive central screen. The council members looked tired. The defeat at Sol had shaken them badly. "Honored Council," Vess began, "I have completed my analysis of humanity. What I have discovered explains their capabilities and suggests we may have made a critical error in judgment." "Explain," said Elder Vorn, his ancient voice crackling. "Earth is what xenobiologists call a death world," Vess said. "It is a Class 9 hostile environment, significantly more dangerous than the homeworlds of 98% of known species. The planet experiences extreme climate variance, frequent natural disasters, and hosts thousands of species that evolved specifically to kill and consume other life." She displayed images of Earth's predators: sharks, crocodiles, bears, venomous snakes, disease-carrying insects. The council members recoiled. Most of them came from gentle worlds where such creatures did not exist. Humans evolved in this environment, Vess continued. They adapted not through physical strength, but through intelligence, tool use, and social cooperation. More importantly, they adapted through constant conflict. The screen showed human wars throughout history. The Council watched in silence as civilizations rose and fell, as battles raged across continents, as weapons grew progressively more destructive. In the last 300 years alone, Vess said, humans fought 2 planet-wide wars that killed over 100 million individuals. They developed nuclear weapons and came within minutes of destroying their entire civilization on multiple occasions. They have fought thousands of smaller conflicts, developing military tactics and strategies that have no equivalent in Imperial doctrine. Counselor Zath spoke up, his voice shaking. Are you saying they are naturally violent? That they are a threat to the entire galaxy? I am saying they are naturally competitive, Vess corrected. Violence is one expression of that, but so is innovation, exploration, and survival. The key point is this. Most species develop technology during peaceful periods. Humans develop technology during wartime. Every major advancement in their history came from military applications first. She displayed a list. Computers, originally built to calculate artillery trajectories. Jet engines designed for fighter aircraft. The internet created as a military communication system. Satellite technology, space travel, advanced material science, all of it had military origins. When we encountered humanity, Vess said quietly, we assumed they were primitive because they had not colonized other systems. We were wrong. They stayed in the Sol system because they were building defenses. They were preparing. Preparing for what? Asked Counselor Miresh. They did not even know we existed. They were preparing for someone, Vess said. Anyone. Humans look at the galaxy and see potential threats. It is how they survived on their death world. It is how they think. When they finally developed the ability to detect our communication networks and learned about the Empire, they did not see an opportunity for friendship. They saw an enemy with superior numbers who would try to conquer them. Elder Vorn leaned forward. And they were correct, were they not? We did send fleets to force them into submission. The chamber fell silent. No one wanted to acknowledge that truth. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen was having her own revelations. Terran intelligence had been monitoring Imperial communications, and they had intercepted Coordinator Vess's report to the Grand Council. Chen read it carefully, then read it again. They finally understand, she said to her staff. They know what we are. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, ma'am? Asked Commander Park. Chen considered the question. I am not sure. We wanted them to take us seriously, to respect our borders. Now they do. But they also know we are dangerous. That might make them more cautious, or it might make them more aggressive. She pulled up a different intelligence report, this one showing the full scope of the Galactic Empire, 10,000 member species, millions of worlds, resources that humanity could barely comprehend. If the Empire truly committed to conquering Sol, could humanity stop them? Ma'am, we are receiving another transmission from the Empire, Park reported. It is Ambassador Thelnara. She is requesting permission to meet with you, face to face. She says she is coming alone, no military escort. Chen raised an eyebrow. Really? That is unexpected. Should we allow it? Chen thought about it. The Empire had just suffered a humiliating defeat. They could come back with overwhelming force, or they could try diplomacy. If Thelnara was willing to meet without an escort, maybe the Empire was finally ready to talk as equals. Tell her she can approach, Chen said. But she will meet me on our terms at a location we choose. Make it clear that any attempt at deception will be met with immediate force. Yes, ma'am. As the transmission was sent, Chen looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Grand Council was debating what to do about humanity. They were learning the truth about Earth, about how humans had evolved, about why they fought so fiercely for their independence. The question was, would that knowledge lead to peace or to total war? Chen had spent her entire life preparing for conflict. She had trained for battle, studied strategy, and learned to make hard decisions. But now, for the first time, she wondered if there might be another way. If the Empire could see humanity as equals rather than subjects. If both sides could find common ground. If war could be avoided through words instead of weapons. It seemed unlikely. But then again, humanity had survived impossible odds before. Maybe they could do it one more time. The Grand Council chamber had never been so divided. Voices echoed off the vast walls as thousands of delegates argued, shouted, and demanded action. The Empire was facing its greatest crisis in centuries, and no one could agree on what to do about it. Counselor Zath stood at his platform, his voice rising above the others. We cannot allow this insult to stand. One species confined to a single system has defeated our forces. If we do not respond with overwhelming power, every client species in the Empire will see us as weak. Rebellions will spread. The entire structure we have built will collapse. And if we respond with more violence, we may start a war we cannot win, countered Elder Vorn. Intelligence Coordinator Vess has shown us what humans are. They are a warrior species from a death world. They have been preparing for conflict their entire existence. How many ships are we willing to lose? How many lives? As many as it takes. Zath roared. We are the Galactic Empire. We have 10,000 worlds, millions of ships, resources beyond measure. One system cannot stand against us, no matter how fierce they are. A new voice cut through the argument. It was the Emperor himself, speaking for only the third time in a century. The entire chamber fell silent. Warmaster Krell lost 40 ships in less than an hour, the Emperor said, his voice soft but carrying throughout the chamber. He is one of our finest commanders, leading a substantial fleet. The humans defeated him without deploying a single manned vessel. Think about what that means. The Emperor was an ancient being, one of the original founders of the Empire. He rarely intervened in council debates, preferring to let the delegates govern themselves. But when he spoke, everyone listened. If we send 1,000 ships to Sol, the Emperor continued, how many will we lose? 200? 500? And if we do manage to conquer the system, what then? Do we exterminate the humans? Occupy their world? They will resist. They will fight. Every human city will become a battlefield. Is that the legacy we wish to leave? Counselor Maresh's water sphere rippled with agitation. Your Majesty, are you suggesting we simply accept defeat? That we allow this species to defy us without consequence? I am suggesting, the Emperor said carefully, that we consider an alternative we have not tried in a very long time. We could treat them as equals. The chamber erupted in protests, but the Emperor raised a hand for silence. 3,000 years ago, when this empire was formed, it was a union of equals. Species came together voluntarily, sharing resources and knowledge. Over time, we grew complacent. We began to categorize species as superior or inferior. We forgot that strength comes in many forms. He gestured to the display showing Earth. The humans have shown us a truth we have been ignoring, that a single determined species can stand against us if they have the will and the means. Perhaps instead of crushing that will, we should respect it. Perhaps we should offer them what they asked for from the beginning, recognition as a sovereign power. The debate raged for hours. Hardliners demanded war. Moderates urged caution. Peacekeepers suggested negotiation. Finally, after endless arguments, a decision was reached. Ambassador Thelnara would return to Sol, but this time without a fleet. She would carry an offer from the Emperor himself, a treaty recognizing human sovereignty. The hardliners voted against it, but they were outnumbered. The motion passed. Ambassador Thelnara's shuttle approached the coordinates Admiral Chen had provided. It was a neutral station, positioned exactly on the border between human space and open territory. The station was small, clearly built recently, designed for diplomatic meetings rather than military purposes. As her shuttle docked, Thelnara felt her heart's beating faster. She had been a diplomat for 300 years, but she had never felt this nervous before. This meeting would determine whether the Empire and humanity could find peace, or whether they were destined for a war that would cost countless lives. She entered the station's conference room and found Admiral Chen waiting. The human stood as Thelnara entered, a gesture of respect. Thelnara returned it with a traditional Velkaran bow. Admiral Chen, Thelnara said, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Ambassador, Chen replied, I admit I was surprised you wanted to meet face to face, especially after what happened. They sat across from each other at a simple table. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Thelnara began. I owe you an apology, she said. When I first arrived at Sol, I treated your species as children who needed guidance. I offered you gifts as if you were primitives who would be grateful for scraps from our table. I was arrogant and condescending. I am sorry. Chen studied the alien ambassador carefully. You were following your culture's protocols. I understand that, but you need to understand something about humans. We do not accept hierarchy imposed from outside. We determine our own path for better or worse. I know that now, Thelnara said. I have read the reports about your world, about your history. You evolved in an environment that would kill most species. You survived by fighting, by adapting, by never giving up. Your entire civilization is built on the idea that individuals and groups should be free to make their own choices. That is correct, Chen said. We have made terrible choices sometimes. We have fought wars we should have avoided. We have harmed our own planet and each other. But they were our choices, our mistakes to learn from. Thelnara reached into her diplomatic pouch and removed a data crystal. She placed it on the table between them. This contains a proposal from the Emperor himself. He offers full recognition of human sovereignty over the Sol system and any territories you claim, a non-aggression pact with no conditions or obligations, an agreement to establish trade and cultural exchanges equals if you are interested. Chen picked up the crystal, examining it. And in return? In return, humanity agrees not to attack imperial territories or vessels. You agree to respect the borders of client species, and you agree to consider the Empire as a potential ally rather than an enemy, should a time come when we face common threats. No integration? No assimilation? No slow absorption into your system? None, Thelnara said firmly. The Emperor has made it clear. Humanity will remain independent. Forever. If that is what you choose. Chen was silent for a long moment. She had expected many things from this meeting, but not this. Not a genuine offer of equality. Why? Chen asked. Why would the Empire change its approach after 3,000 years? Thelnara met her gaze. Because you forced us to. Because you showed us that not every species will submit. Because 40 ships and thousands of lives are now lost. And we realized we could lose many more if we continue down this path. The Emperor is old and wise. He remembers when the Empire was different, when it was better. He wants to return to those principles. And the hardliners? The ones who wanted to conquer us? They exist, Thelnara admitted. And they are angry. But they are outnumbered for now. If humanity accepts this treaty, it will set a precedent. Other species may demand the same treatment. The Empire will have to change. Some will fight that change. But change is coming regardless. Chen stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who depended on her to make the right choice. She thought about the war that could come if she refused this offer. She thought about the future, about what humanity could become if they had peace instead of constant conflict. I will need to consult with Earth's governments, Chen said finally. This decision is too important for one person to make. Of course, Thelnara said. Take whatever time you need. 3 days later, they met again. Chen carried humanity's response. We accept, she said simply, with some modifications to the treaty language regarding territorial claims and the definition of common threats. Our legal team has prepared the changes. Thelnara reviewed the modifications. They were reasonable, mostly clarifications rather than substantial changes. The Emperor will approve these. We have an agreement. They spent the next several hours working through the details, ensuring every word was precise and clear. Finally, as the station's artificial sun began to dim for its night cycle, they reached the end of the document. There is one more thing, Chen said. A personal question, if I may. Of course, and do you think this peace will last? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? Thelnara considered the question carefully. I do not know. The Empire has momentum behind its old ways. Change will be difficult and slow. But I believe the Emperor is sincere, and I believe that what happened at Sol will be remembered. The Empire learned that it cannot simply take whatever it wants anymore. That is a valuable lesson, Chen nodded slowly. Then let us hope both our peoples can learn to live with this new reality. They signed the treaty, each using their own species' traditional methods. The document was encrypted, duplicated, and transmitted to both Earth and the Imperial capital world. After 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had recognized another species as a true equal. As Thelnara's shuttle departed, she looked back at the station, at the boundary line between human space and the rest of the galaxy. She wondered what would come next. Would humans remain in their system, content with their sovereignty? Or would they eventually venture out, exploring and expanding? Thank you for watching and comment for next part.